Well, I'll say good morning to everyone. Thank you for your attendance this morning, especially to our clients from South Asia who are really 2 to 2.5 hours behind us. I know it's very early for you. So I believe all of you know me as Cynthia Lam, manager of TESTEX Malaysia, and I bid everyone a warm welcome. I'm very happy to host this webinar today, and I hope that today's session will bring clarity to the new OEKO TEX regulations that will come into effect on the 1st of June. Again, should you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will attend to them after the presentation. In case we are not able to answer, we will come back to you after the webinar. Right? So let's proceed. So we will discuss the new changes to 4 products, namely Standard 100, Organic Cotton, Data Standard, and the Eco Passport. Right? So at the start of the year, OEKO TEX updated us with new test criteria and limit values and requirements for its range of certifications and labels. So some of you may have attended OEKO TEX webinar on the 10th of March. This webinar is similar, probably with more clarity and explanations. So as you are familiar with OEKO TEX past release of new regulations in January of every year, the implementation will happen then in April. So starting from this year, 2026, the new regulations are released in March and full implementation will follow in June. It will still provide the 3-month transition period. So the OEKO TEX RSL is already updated with the new SVHCs, substances of very high concern, as well as the standard guidelines from March 2026. So if you look at the screen, these are the new substances of very high concern, and that there are no test methods required. They are included in current parameters that are tested. However, for the colorant reactive brown 51, it will be added as a question to the application form, which is similar to the current query about navy blue, right, in the application form. Let me go to the next slide. Vinyl chloride will be tested as a new parameter. So I have been asked before about PVC, but we will not test PVC by itself, but vinyl chloride will be handled as a separate item now. It will be tested in the lab under a new parameter. So the test method is under development, and once it is available, it would be implemented. For the other 2 substances, they will be added to the current respective test parameters, right? And they will also be able to be seen in the test report when eventually they are tested in the lab. So go to the next slide. These new substances will be added to the existing parameter test. So we are waiting for the details. Once this tests are added on, they will be done in the lab, and then as usual, they will be added on to the test report under the respective categories. For example, other chemical residues or under pesticides. So, changes in limit values. These are the changes to the limit values. of the bisphenol group. It is just a change in limit values because these were already in the original SVHC, and so the limit values have been updated. It will be implemented as of June, but I think currently when we do the test, it will also be recorded with the new limit values. Next one. These are also additional ones with changes in limit values. So the synthetic glitter test is already available, and this glitter test is included in relation to the shedding of microplastics, which is a very hot topic at the moment, right? All prints using glitter will be subjected to this fastness test. So it needs to be fast. If during the test any glitter comes out up to a certain level, it will show a failed test. So this is in relation to microplastics. Para-anisodine will be included in the azo test, and TPP is part of other chemical residues, right? We have added some new substances under observation. It's because there is no concrete evidence right now whether they are relevant or whether they have any big impact in the textile and the leather industry. So at the moment, they will be monitored at least for the next year. And OEKO TEX is developing the relevant test methods. So out of these 5, 3 of them, the last 3, are under Eco Passport. Substances removed from under observation group. These were tested in the last year or maybe the last couple of years, but since there were insufficient data that links them to the textile and leather industry, OEKO TEX had decided to remove them from the RSL list, meaning that they hardly pose any detrimental incidences when used in textile and leather industry. Exceptions for total fluorine limit value. OEKO TEX have provided a definition of PFAS. So currently, PFAS is defined as fluorinated organic chemicals containing at least one fully fluorinated carbon atom. So this is effective from March, and I believe in due course there will be further clarification, and we will keep you posted. Sorry. So the exceptions for total fluorine limit value. In this table, you can see the different scenarios in case total fluorine test fails. So total fluorine and PFAS are always tested together on a sample, and should a test fails, the customer has the option to follow the pyrolysis of the GCMS, which you see here. This is a voluntary test. The client needs to prove with documentation that they are not using PFAS substances intentionally in their production or formulations. So if the pyrolysis test does not show fluorine from non-PFAS sources, then your certificate can be issued. So this is a work in progress, and we will come back to you a little later on once we have the pyrolysis methods defined. So RSL outside of the standard, the latest and updated, also whether the corrected versions of the RSL and standards will be released in April. Sorry about that. Would you just hold on for a short while? Sharon? Unfortunately, I mean, our office next door seems to be having some renovation on. We would just ask them to kindly not do it for an hour. And okay, let's carry on. So ACP changes. This is the active chemical products. So DBDPE, which is listed under ACP, it will no longer be allowed and will therefore be removed from the ACP platform on the OEKO TEX website. So all ACP which contain this substance, this DBDPE, will be removed from the ACP list, meaning that in the past we have told you that if you're using anything that has an active chemical base, you will need to make sure that it exists on the ACP platform on the OEKO TEX website. So once they are not on that, you will not be allowed to use them. So they will be removed. Certificates containing such ACPs eventually will be withdrawn, but renewals are not possible as of 1st of June this year. So currently they are still valid. So after the 1st of June, we will not renew any certificates or any ACP products that contain DBDPE. So findings during testing for risk parameters. This is quite an important definition here, that risk parameters are selected based on the classifications as legally restricted substances in the EU and the critical significance within OEKO TEX Standard 100 and Organic Cotton Certificate. From June 2026, if initial testing finds restricted substances, a second series of tests need to be conducted within the validity period. This requirement covers Standard 100, organic cotton, and leather. And for the time being, Eco Passport is excluded until further notice. So risk parameters, once they are located or once they're detected during any test, this second series of testing will kick into effect as of this year. There will be some tests done as of some form of a product control, whether or not you have done anything to remove the risk of this risk parameter from your production. Okay, so move on to the next slide. Standard 100 updates. We start with Standard 100 as usual. Standard 100 and organic cotton. Okay. Changes of upstream certificate acceptance. To increase traceability within the Standard 100, upstream certificates from second-tier suppliers will only be accepted for a first certification. At renewal, the certificate will need to come from the direct supplier. That's the first time we accept it, but from the renewal, the direct supplier needs to apply for certification. 2026 is a transition year for all certificates, meaning all second-tier supply certificates will be accepted, but come 1st of June 2027, all second-tier suppliers need to have their own certificate. So I will provide you some examples here. So on this slide, you can see that this is a commission making up. So there are companies and brands who specify their supply chain. You need to purchase this component from this supplier or that accessory from this supplier. So when they do that, this making up factory can exclude having a second tier certificate from their suppliers. So as long as the responsible company maintains control over its commission or its partner suppliers, it is allowed that, as in this example, the sewing facility does not need its own certificate. This is another example. So if a sewing company buys the fabrics or the accessories and it's their own product and they sell the own product, it is not commission, right? So it is actually their own product. So in this case, if you check this, the sewing facilities will need to have a certificate because the customer does not have control over the sewing facilities because they are buying it from an agent, etc. So in such cases where it is not controlled by the probably the making up, then they need to have a certificate for their second tier suppliers. So direct purchase from certified suppliers, for example, no affiliation between second tier supplier and certificate holder. Second tier supplier must apply for its own certificate. An authorized agent or a certified supplier, there is a subsidiary or a certified supplier, sister company under the same group as the certified supplier, also very common. So certified supplier is the factory, the second tier supplier is the trading company. So questions for scenario 2 to 4, under the new regulations, should the second tier suppliers apply for certification? It is strongly recommended to certify every trader, regardless of the structure or business relationship. So we need, or you as the buyer or the head of your supply chain, you need to encourage them to have their own certification in order to secure that your supply chain is safe. So in scenario 1, if there's no affiliation to the certificate holder, the second tier supplier must apply for its own certificate. In scenario 2 to 4, agents, subsidiaries, sister companies, no separate certificate is required because they are affiliated. The second tier supplier is officially linked to the certificate holder and is proven by documents. However, if we find that the link is broken somewhere and the documentation are not complete, then we will need to check and ensure that that subsidiary or trader, etc., needs to have their own certificate. So we move on to an area where we are talking about wet and chemical processes. Non-certified wet processes will still be accepted until June 2027. So this is to ensure increased quality within the OEKO TEX standard 100, right? We, for example, commission processes will need to be certified from this year onwards. At renewal, all wet and chemical processes on main materials in any supply chain will need to be certified. So I think this is quite clear. meaning that all in the supply chain who are providing commission services, and it is a wet process like dyeing, finishing, washing, they need to have their own certificate. So giving a few Q&A here, right? The new regulations apply only for commissioners, but also when the client buys dyed finished fabrics from a non-certified supplier. Yeah, wet chemical processing is not only relevant for commission work, but also for finished main materials purchased from non-certified suppliers. So where a certificate is required, if you look at here, right? If the applicant's main component is fabric and the applicant additionally purchases dyed finished fabrics from a non-certified supplier, that supplier must apply for certification. Example, where certification is not required, if the applicant produces assembled zippers and manufactures the zipper tapes in-house, it's not necessary for the supplier to be certified, right? Because these are not the main components. But in any case, where non-certified components are used, it will be subjected to testing. This is not a question that we have come across. Is the wet process determined based on water usage? If so, would processes where water is not used, such as digital printing, lamination, or coating, be included in the applicable scope? The definition is that wet and chemical processes include all production steps in which the material is treated with water. Example, sizing, washing, dyeing, wet finishing. It also includes chemical processes. Okay, example, dyeing, printing, lamination, coating, finishing. So according to the new regulations, these processes must be certified. As long as there is a process that involves wet and chemical processes, that area of production must be certified. There is also this other question that Factory A holds a home textile certificate and is in charge of production stage, only sewing and making up. So Factory A and dyeing factory belong to the same group, the same management, same boss. A and B share the same address, but they are doing different processes. One is sewing, making up, and the other one is dyeing. So must dyeing factory be applied for a commission dyeing and printing certificate? Yes. The production that does the commission work, the dyeing, the finishing, they need to have a certificate. So this is add on to the requirement where and when wet chemical processes involved needs to be certified. Maybe we skip this one and we move on to standard updates for organic cotton. So just for information, the mention of GMO not detectable. After careful consideration and in line with our commitment to transparency and quality, OEKO TEX will no longer allow the term GMO not detectable to be included on organic certificates. It's because we have a 5% limit value for GMO impurities. So the fact that there is 5%, so the GMO not detectable is misleading. So we will no longer include this phrase, GMO not detectable, in organic certificates. So that is a question here that says, if requested by the client, would it be acceptable to add GMO detected below 5% to indicate that GMO testing was conducted? So it will not be possible to include an alternative wording to the scope. It is not appropriate to imply that product may still contain up to 5%. Even though it is claimed to be below 5, there are still impurities. So we will not allow the GMO not detectable to be included in the certificate because it is detectable even though it is below 5%. So advanced digital traceability for organic cotton. OEKO TEX is working with Textile Genesis to strengthen digital traceability for OEKO TEX organic cotton. So this new system replaces paper-based transaction certificates from the past. It uses a secure digital chain of custody. So it improves transparency and reduce any risk of fraud. This makes the OEKO TEX organic cotton certification more reliable and easier to manage across the supply chain. So Textile Genesis is a traceability platform that provides one-stop traceability and market compliance solution. It is a fiber-forward traceability from fiber to retail supply chain mapping and is digitized at source. So we will be working with Textile Genesis, and for those of you who has an organic cotton certificate, I believe you have been informed about this and you would be able to work within this platform. For Eco Passport, this update. So we are talking about biodegradability. So I think we have started on this topic since last year. As of June 2026, it becomes mandatory. So it is the only new regulation for ECP. And biodegradability. So what is biodegradability? The ingredients whose intended function is surfactant, water softener, or gelatin agent, independent of the lab subcategory of the product, they must be readily biodegradable under aerobic conditions. So to prove biodegradability, which is required, you need a test report according to one of the norms, like OECD 301 series, OECD 310, ISO 9439, ISO 9408, ISO 14593, ISO 10708, ISO 7827. So you need a report from either one of these to prove biodegradability. Or a respective classification of readily biodegradability of ingredient must be given on the OEKO website. So we can talk about the second requirement about the OEKO website in a short while. So in both cases, the product will be marked as containing readily biodegradable substances on the certificate if you meet these two requirements, meaning a test report or if you can prove it on the OEKO website. Alternatively, a self-declaration from the applicant is sufficient, but then biodegradability will not be mentioned on the certificate. Right. The European Chemicals Agency implements the EU's chemical legislation. This is OEKO. So to further explain, in case the client say, okay, this ingredient is readily biodegradable, I don't have any test report to show it, then they can opt for a self-declaration. But a self-declaration says, yes, it is biodegradable. We will only accept the self-declaration, but we cannot indicate biodegradable on your certificate because it needs to be verified either with a test report or it has to be verified on the OEKO website. So if a self-declaration is done, OEKO TEX or the certifying institute will need to do the checks And should there be any indication that the self-declaration is not correct, there may be a possibility of withdrawal of the certificate. So biodegradability, mandatory as of June. These are information that will be included on the certificate. Under footnote, proof of biodegradability is proven, it's provided, and this will be on your certificate as a footnote. Minimal disclosure, all ingredients with the use of surfactants, water softeners, and chelating agents must be listed. Okay, it must be disclosed. In the application form, like is stated here, by signing this application, if you self-declare the above-mentioned products are biodegradable as specified in the OEKO TEX Eco Passport Standard document, we will need to do further checks. But the word biodegradable will not be included in your certificate. Right. So next one. Also, depending on the norm, different terms are used for the level of complete biodegradability. Each of the following is possible: readily biodegradable, and these are provided if you have test reports under OECD 301 and 310 and ISO 7827, or ultimately biodegradable under ISO 9439, 9408, 14593, 10708, and 7827. Other terms might be used in other norms, but terms like partially or hardly is not sufficient. It is not acceptable to mean that the product is biodegradable. So I would like to talk a little bit about how you can locate biodegradability of an ingredient that you're using on the OEKO website. So if you go to OEKO, you would be able to come to this platform. We're going to use this example where this arachidonic acid, we want to check whether it is biodegradable. So step one, you provide the test number, okay, because you would be given probably a test report that this one is biodegradable. And if you want to check whether or not it is, you can go to the OEKO website, and this is what you do. You put in the test number, and then you would come to this page where you can access the dossier. So lead dossier gives the most complete information. You find one that's maybe right at the top there, and then you open the file, right? Step two. And when you open the file, you would be able to go to its environmental data. The facts can be seen on this dossier. So where do you find biodegradability? You go to section 5, which is headed as environmental fate and pathways. You scroll down and maybe to 5.1 or 5.3, and if you check in here, step 5 and 6, you look for phrases that says readily biodegradable, estimation values, etc. And then you read the summary, right? And if the summary says something like, all of the available evidence supports a lack of biodegradability, then this is a contradiction. This ingredient is not biodegradable. So you should refrain from using it. And probably look for an alternative. So this is how you can go to the OEKO website on the platform, and then you would be able to check on some of the ingredients that you use and which your supplier have indicated that is biodegradable. So that is all for all the changes to the OEKO TEX regulations for today. And let me see if there were any questions that you posted. There are no questions. And perhaps no questions here. So if any one of you have any questions, perhaps you want to raise your hand or something. Do you have any questions? Otherwise, you can email directly to us, kl@testex.com, or to me, cynthia.lam@testex.com, or to sharon.co@testex.com with the questions. And we will come back to you. In case we don't have any direct answer to your question, we will check with our experts at our lab and our head office, and we will come back to you with an answer. So, any questions from anyone? If not, then we would be able to close this session. No?
Sorry.
Yes.
I have one question. So my name is Gokta from Fabric.
From?
Fabric.
Pen Fabric, okay.
Yeah. Regarding your slide number 7, right?
Slide 7, just hold on. Yes. Yes.
Change of limit value for all the substances.
Yes.
So may I know how do you judge when you need to change your limit? Because I saw the substances listed over here got bisphenol B, bisphenol F.
Yes.
So how do you judge when you need to change your limit?
It will officially be implemented 1st of June. Currently, we can actually also detect all these limit values in existing tests, but if your test result exceeds what is the new limit value, it will not be a failed limit value until after June this year, right? Because there is a transition period of 3 months from now until June. So it will show as an over limit, but it will not be a failed parameter. So you would take these 3 months to probably find out where is the issue, and maybe you can make changes to the use of whatever product that is causing the failed parameter.
Okay,
Am I
understand.
clear? Sorry, am I clear on this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anyway, bisphenol test is already part and parcel of current testing programs. So all these are already inside the test reports. So we will implement the new limit values in after June. Yes.
Then another questions that I want to ask regarding the wet and chemical processes.
Wet and
You
chemical.
have mentioned that all the wet and chemical process need to be certified.
Yes.
Then I give you one scenario. For example, if you buy a dye fabric from another factory,
Yeah.
then we just run the finishing over here. So that factory, their processes also need to be certified, is it?
You're buying the fabric from that factory, and they are not certified at all?
What if the factory themselves, all the processes, they are not certified? Can we still proceed to purchase the dye fabric?
But you are buying that fabric. I am assuming it is a non-certified facility, and then you are doing the finishing in your own facility, but you are
Yes.
certified. You are certified for wet processes, right? Because you
Yes.
are doing all the wet processing until the finished product. You are certified, let's say, for a finished fabric. The process is being done by you in finishing. So I do not think that that facility needs to be certified.
Oh.
Unless you are buying some fabrics from them that you are not subjecting to further wet processing, then that factory needs to apply for certification for those fabrics.
Oh. Okay.
Are you I mean, if you are buying, say, gray fabrics from this supplier, and then you are using the gray fabrics to do further processing, wet or chemical processing, then there is no need for that facility to be certified, because it is only gray fabrics. Because you are a certified wet and chemical processing facility, and you are doing it. Okay?
Okay, I understand.
All right. Do we have any other questions from any participant?
Yeah.
Okay, if not, then we will bring this webinar to a close. I would like to is there a question?
I'm Eng. For that for the gray fabric lah. Now we got the gray fabric and the dye fabric lah. So for all the raw material like the yarn supplier should be certified lah.
Okay,
for
hold
the yarn
on.
supplier, yeah.
The yarn supplier.
Yeah.
You are buying from a yarn supplier that is
to make
not
the gray fabric.
to purchase the to make the gray fabric. You are producing the gray fabric from the yarn
and
supplier.
Also, yeah.
But you are a certified processor, meaning that from the yarn you are weaving it, and then you are processing it, going through all the wet or chemical processes. That supplier of yarn, I suppose it's best that they are certified, but even if they are not certified, you could use them. But I am not sure whether for the subsequent year, whether they will need to be certified. I'm not sure whether there is any provision for gray suppliers, meaning whether it's gray yarn or gray fabric. Let me come back to you on this. Let me come back to you. So
because my cert also including the gray lah.
The gray, yes.
Gray and dye fabric lah.
Oh, gray and dye fabric.
Yeah.
So the gray fabric, in your case, you are producing.
I think my search scope also including the gray and also the dye fabric, dye and finish fabric.
Okay, so the gray fabric you are going to produce from yarn that is purchased from a non-certified supplier. Is that it?
Maybe lah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then in that case, if you are selling gray fabric and also dyed fabrics, yes, your gray fabric, not gray fabric, your gray yarn supplier needs to be certified.
Oh, like that lah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you will produce gray fabric to be sold to down to your supply chain, right? So the gray yarn supplier needs to be certified. Yes.
Okay, understand.
Right. Thanks. Unless Sharon, you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I think it's best the yarn to be certified.
Great. So do we have any more questions? If not, then I will bring this session to a close. I'd like to say thank you very much for all of you who are attending, and that please feel free to email us if you have questions, or if any of the points that we discussed is not very clear to you. Please feel free to send us an email, and we will definitely come back to you. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you again in the future. Thanks. Bye-bye.